Good evening, everybody. New evidence of corruption at the highest levels of the Obama Justice Department and FBI. Two sources tell Fox News that disgraced and demoted FBI agent Peter Strzok was told that a hostile actor had breached Hillary Clinton's server during the 2016 campaign, but then covered it all up for the Obama administration. That's the same Peter Strzok who helped fired FBI Director James Comey draft a memorandum exonerating Hillary Clinton of wrongdoing weeks before she was even interviewed by the FBI, despite overwhelming evidence and a probe that was far from complete. Also tonight here, Special Counsel Robert Mueller, as usual, well afield of his Russia collusion mandate. Mueller's pack of partisan investigators now widening their inquiries beyond all reason. They're exploring now the Trump campaign's connections to the United Arab Emirates and possible business dealings. The special counsel now has gone 10 months without producing any evidence of collusion, while the House and Senate Intelligence and Judiciary Committees have done no better. The same is true of the House Oversight Committee. They've all produced exactly nothing, absolutely no evidence of any kind of collusion. Yet Speaker Ryan and Majority Leader McConnell lack the integrity to insist that the Mueller witch hunt be concluded. Instead, they allow Mueller to continue wasting manpower, resources, and taxpayer dollars to aid the Dems and the left in their efforts to obstruct and subvert President Trump and his administration. And for President Trump's part, he's pressing ahead with the punitive tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, despite all of the braying of the Democrats and the Republican establishment and, of course, the national left-wing media last week. And our president is forced to take on almost single-handedly the congressional Republican establishment and the GOP leadership on Capitol Hill, who've been bought and paid for by the Business Roundtable and the Chamber of Commerce. We'll take all of that up here tonight. Our guests tonight, two congressmen calling for a second special counsel to investigate FBI corruption and FISA court abuses, Congressman Lee Zeldin and Congressman Francis Rooney join us. Also tonight, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett and the Washington Examiner's Byron York to take up the never-ending Mueller witch hunt. And we'll take up the deep state's attacks on President Trump with leading political analysts Ed Rollins and Michael Goodwin. Our top story tonight, rising calls for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to appoint a second special counsel to investigate FBI corruption specifically. President Trump tweeting about the matter saying this, quote, "Why did the Obama administration start an investigation into the Trump campaign with zero proof of wrongdoing long before the election in November? Wanted to discredit so Crooked H would win. Unprecedented, bigger than Watergate. Plus, Obama did nothing about Russian meddling." And tonight, more evidence of FBI corruption. Sources tell Fox News that FBI agent Peter Strzok was told about an irregularity in the Hillary Clinton server, suggesting a possible breach during the election and access by a hostile actor. But Strzok did absolutely nothing and resisted a formal damage assessment after classified information passed through the Clinton server. My first guest tonight is one of 13 Republican representatives who signed on to a letter calling for Attorney General Jeff Sessions to appoint that second special counsel to investigate Clinton and Obama corruption. Congressman Lee Zeldin, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, great to have you with us. Let's start with the prospects for a second special counsel, particularly focused on the Obama Justice Department and FBI.
It's absolutely necessary. You can't expect the DOJ and the FBI to investigate themselves. While President Trump and his family were being investigated for winning the election without any evidence that they committed any crime to win the election, you actually have all sorts of evidence that there was misconduct at the highest levels of the DOJ and FBI with regards to how and why the Clinton probe ended, how and why the Trump-Russia probe began, and all the FISA abuse that took place when you're bringing those secret documents to a secret court for a warrant to spy on a U.S. citizen. There's actual evidence of misconduct from the Obama DOJ FBI, that is what really should be investigated, and you can't expect DOJ and FBI to investigate themselves. A special counsel has to be appointed to go after it.
You know, the present special counsel, though, I think Congressman Zeldin argues, if not persuasively, certainly strongly, that a second counsel just seems to be doubling our problems right now. And I find myself, frankly, wondering how in the world it is that a special counsel in and of itself is a constitutional institution that should be preserved, because to me, it seems utterly to put our Constitution on its head and to frustrate a sitting president and his administration, who have far better things to do than to deal with a special counsel on a witch hunt that has produced nothing and yet persists and widens his inquiries inexplicably, and I think beyond all reason.
Well, it's really important to note that, for one, it really is hard to imagine the Department of Justice and FBI doing enough of an investigation for there to be not just transparency, but accountability, full accountability with regards to that misconduct from 2016, doing that on their own without appointing a special counsel. But, comparing it to the Mueller special counsel, I mean, that needs to come to an end.
How will that happen? How will it happen? You would think that Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan would have the integrity and the interest of the nation at heart and would stand shoulder to shoulder with the president and say, enough is enough. It is time to end this madness. It is a farce being played out before the American people, who are watching a Congress that seems a congressional leadership, and I'm talking about the Republican establishment here, your bosses. They seem utterly contemptuous of the American people, the Constitution, and this president.
Well, first off, my bosses are not here in Washington. My wife, my two kids, and my 725,000 constituents back home, they're the ones who I report to. I took an oath to our Constitution that there are different sources of what I am beholden to, and it's not anything that's here in Washington.
Well, if you defy then Speaker Ryan, I'm sure that you will nonetheless, given the attention you pay your bosses as you catalog them, have some interesting committee assignments. Do I infer correctly?
I'm here to represent my district. I love my country. I'm here for all the reasons.
We all understand how the Constitution works, Congressman. But the Speaker of the House is also elected by you and 434 other folks. So why don't we get to the point? You have a leadership that's owned lock, stock, and barrel by the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, the GOP establishment. I mean, what in the world are we to do? We're watching this go on. It is a farce. You're obviously frustrated by it. Why not get together with the leadership and say, what in the world are you going to do?
Well, I think that everyone, including the White House, has identified that the best possible scenario would be for the Mueller investigation to end, because they have been providing tens of thousands.
Exactly.
They've provided tens of thousands of documents. They've been cooperating. They've had all of these different depositions that have taken place. They've been cooperating. The president himself said that he's willing to speak with Mueller. So, I mean, there's been full transparency.
I certainly hope it doesn't come to that, because I wouldn't trust Robert Mueller as far as I could throw him. Would you? Would you seriously, Congressman, sit down with that special counsel?
The president has said over and over again that there's no collusion. I am not aware of any collusion. This is at this point in March of 2018.
What kind of farce goes on this long in public view without response from the leadership of the Republican Party on Capitol Hill and the Senate and the House saying, enough, you are subverting a president of the United States?
That's where we're at. That's what has to happen right now. I mean, the best case scenario is for it to end, not because there's anything to hide, but because there's nothing there.
But you don't even have to say that. It is, by the way, innocent until proved guilty, even with a special counsel, and the man hasn't produced an iota of evidence.
Yeah, and where they went after Michael Flynn. I mean, you mentioned Peter Strzok earlier. This is also the same Peter Strzok who interviewed Michael Flynn. So when Michael Flynn ends up getting in trouble, the underlying activity, by the way, which really doesn't get spoken of, is that the Obama administration was trying to get a Security Council resolution passed through the UN seeking to ethnically cleanse Judea and Samaria and East Jerusalem, that UN Security Council 2334, that resolution. Michael Flynn was talking to these other countries, advocating for them to do the right thing, not just for America, but for our greatest ally in Israel. And then he was asked about it. I think your larger point
is that the Obama administration was corrupt and politicized nearly every executive department and the intelligence community at large. And I think we absolutely agree on this, certainly, and I commend you for calling for a second special counsel, even though I'm not sure that that is progress in this matter, to look into that corruption and malfeasance. Congressman Lee Zeldin, thank you for leading on these issues, and we appreciate you being with us here tonight.
Thank you, Lou.
We're coming right back with much more. Stay with us. President Trump standing firm on tariffs to help American workers keep their jobs.
We're not backing down. Mexico is, we've had a very bad deal with Mexico, very bad deal with Canada. It's called NAFTA. For many years, NAFTA has been a disaster.
Ed Rollins, Michael Goodwin take up the president's battle against the establishment over unfair trade deals that have squandered American wealth for decades. And Mueller's phony probe expanding to the Middle East now, despite no evidence of collusion. We'll examine the Mueller witch hunt here next. President Trump said relations between the United States and Israel have never been stronger as he hosted Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House today. The leaders discussed the state of Middle East peace talks in their first face-to-face meeting since the United States announced that it is moving its embassy to Jerusalem.
I think we have a very good chance. And the biggest difficulty that anybody's had, you look over 25 years, nobody could get past, number one, Jerusalem. They couldn't get past it. We've taken it off the table. So this gives us a real opportunity to do peace. We'll see how it works out. The Palestinians, I think, are wanting to come back to the table.
Joining us tonight, Ed Rollins, former White House political director under President Ronald Reagan, chairman of the Great America PAC, New York Post columnist Michael Goodwin, both Fox Business contributors.
Thank you.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Well, let's celebrate your return to the air. and what do you think of this idea? Congressman Zeldin talking about it, 12 others through Congress have been talking about special counsel. What do you make of the recommendation?
Part of me really likes the idea because I think the congressional probes are slow and erratic, particularly in the Senate. And I don't think we can really count on the Justice Department to investigate itself, or the FBI, certainly. So that part of me leans toward wanting a special counsel. But the point you were making about once you start them, you can't stop them. Who would appoint this person? What would be the writ that they would get? So I'm torn, and at this point I would say let's wait and see what the Inspector General comes up with. It should be shortly, and then I think there might be a stronger case.
Do you have any faith that the Inspector General will actually produce something?
I do. I think he will find.
Really?
I think he will find irregularities in the FBI and the Justice Department.
Well,
on the Clinton
we know there are
investigation.
irregularities right now.
Yes,
and so think about it. Wait a minute, though. Why do we keep talking about they're going to find irregularities? It's staring us in the face.
Right.
It's Strzok. It's Lisa Page. It is McCabe. It is Comey. Why do we need an investigation to see what's in front of us?
I would argue that another special counsel would go nowhere. And I think the reality is there is 23 cases that the Attorney General said they're investigating right today of major leaks, criminal leaks, felonious leaks, out of the government, the former government. I would argue that's what they should bring forth. And my sense is that they open that up a little bit, and instead of investigating, start convicting people. All right, that's all those guys that basically were there. And I think that's the evidence of where you're not going to get Hillary, and you're not going to get.
Whoa! Why are we going to? Because I got to tell you, if based on what we all know now, if there's no investigation of Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, her email servers, the conduct of that Secretary of State in office, My God, what country are we?
I agree with all that, but we've talked about this now for 6 months or a year, and nothing has moved forward, and I just don't think Republicans are going to take that up.
Well, you know what? Then they ought to be held accountable.
Well, they should be. I agree.
Look, I think there's a lot of interest, particularly among Trump voters, for a resolution of all of these issues. As to Horowitz, I mean, the Inspector General of the Justice Department, he's the one who did produce the Strzok and Page text. Mm-hmm. He's the one who told us about McCabe, I mean, indirectly. So I think...
Well, he started by telling us that they didn't have... acknowledging that they didn't have them.
No, he's the one who came up with them. The FBI said we don't have them. So he did, I think, disprove the FBI's claim in that point. So, look, I think his report is going to come soon. If it does have strong things, then I think there can be a real argument for a special counsel to focus on these particular things.
Okay, so now we get an Inspector General report, and there's loud applause across the country. We get an Inspector General report.
Maybe.
Maybe. It's overdue now, by the way, by several months. But I mean, what is the point of the exercise?
Well, the fact
to put more under the rug?
The fact that only 13 Republicans have signed on asking for the special counsel tells me that there's not a lot of support among Republicans. You can get 200 members to sign anything on either side.
When you look at Robert Mueller's face every night, you don't want two of those greeting you every night.
Look, I mean, but there's an elephant in the room we're not talking about, which is Jeff Sessions is the hobbled Attorney General. I mean, all this is a workaround of Jeff Sessions.
Do you think he's that high energy? I mean, really? There's a bigger elephant in the room, if you will. Forgive me for this, taking advantage of this segue, and that's the Republican Party. You're watching a Republican Party. You've got Paul Ryan battling the President of the United States on tariffs against countries that are subsidizing their steel, their aluminum producers and manufacturing, and dumping it in the United States and running trade deficits every year, in the United States running trade deficits every year since 1975. He tries to do the rational thing in the national interest and is greeted by Paul Ryan's opposition. What kind of nonsense is that?
Well, he ought to call their bluff, and he basically, they can pass something to reject.
In an election.
No, they can pass something to reduce his powers, but he can veto it, and they don't have the votes to override his veto, and he'll get to put this through. But my sense is there's some waffling going on his part and the White House's part. And they basically have to say, this is what we're going to do, and here I'm going to do it next week, and boom, let's move forward on it. And the House can do whatever the hell it wants to do. But at the end of the day, he's got to have a war with these guys. Otherwise, they're going to basically...
Well, he's acknowledging that there's already a trade war being waged by China, the European Union, against us. He should acknowledge that it's time to go to war with the very same people, that is, Ryan and McConnell, who are telling him and his administration and his policies all to go to hell.
Well, look, if
you get the last word.
If it's not this, what is it? All the smart people who say that a trade war will be bad. Yeah, what is the answer for the working class people in this country who have seen their jobs disappear because of these trade agreements?
By the millions.
If this is not if the tariff isn't the issue, what is the answer? Because nobody else has come up with one.
Do you think anybody on K Street, the Business Roundtable, the Chamber of Commerce, the Republican Party establishment want to answer that question? They haven't got the guts.
They don't want to, but they want to have the fight because they can charge more fees.
Who wants to have the fight?
I said they want to have the fight. They're happy to have the fight. They get to charge. Their clients want them to fight. What do they do otherwise? K Street wants this battle. They'd love to have this battle.
Well, they want everyone to do what Ryan and McConnell do.
Right, that's exactly
Just roll over. Ed Rollins, Michael Goodwin. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. The question is, do you believe the continued desperate expansion of the Mueller investigation after 10 months of producing no evidence of collusion proves the special counsel's principal aim is to undercut and obstruct President Trump? Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs tonight. On Wall Street, stocks closing near session highs. The Dow surging 337 points. The S&P up 27. The Nasdaq up 73. Volume on the big board, 3.6 billion shares. So much apparently for investor concerns, said the business press of the country. It's over now, 2 days later. Qualcomm shares down 1%. The government asking a shareholder meeting be delayed for a national security review of the Broadcom bid. Crude oil prices up more than 2% following a report the United States will be the world's largest oil producer by 2023. Now, what's interesting about that is we've been reporting that the United States will soon be the largest producer. Anyway, somebody paid attention today, and crude oil went up 2%, so say the wags. A reminder, listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, the Mueller endless witch hunt, expanding, of course, without a single shred of evidence of Russian collusion. We take up this massive waste of everybody's time and taxpayer dollars with Greg Jarrett.
You totaled your brand new car. Nobody's hurt.
Judicial Watch now suing the Justice Department for records related to Bruce Orr, his wife Nellie Orr, and their involvement in the anti-Trump phony dossier. Bruce Orr, who has since been demoted from a top post at DOJ, was a close contact for former British spy Christopher Steele, who compiled the dossier, well, not on behalf of Fusion GPS, because he was paid a lot of money by them to do so. Nellie was employed by Fusion to assist in the cultivation of opposition research on President Trump. Cultivation. You like that? I mean, everybody's out there for hire to smear him. Joining me now, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Greg, great to see you.
Good to be here, Lou.
Judicial Watch now suing the Justice
Good for
Department.
them. Yeah, it's about time. There are several villains in the whole Trump-Russia hoax. Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS, right. Christopher Steele, they're the 2 guys who phonied up this dossier. And then, of course, Nellie Orr was in on it, providing research, and her husband at the Department of Justice meeting secretly with Simpson and Steele, and they're all meeting with reporters trying to get them to trash Trump before the election. It's about time that Nellie Orr and Bruce Orr and some others have to answer for all of that by providing documents and testimony.
I don't suppose the special counsel looking for collusion, having found none, will pivot and look at the corruption of the Hillary Clinton era within the Obama administration, the Obama politicization, if you will, and weaponizing of executive branches, including DOJ and the FBI.
No, because it appears as though Mueller has assembled a team of partisans to get Trump, and nothing else will be a distraction.
Give me your best judgment. What is the best way to shut down this moronic episode in the special counsel?
Well, you said it yourself, defund them. Members of Congress ought to vote to pull the financial rug out from underneath the special counsel. But that would require a backbone on the part of Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, and they seem to be bereft.
Well, they've already sold out to the business establishment, the Business Roundtable, the Chamber of Commerce. So these 2 men should be standing up for their party. They're going into the midterm elections, which historically are devastating to the party holding the White House. This president has the opportunity to reverse that and to make significant gains. They're just simply saying the hell with the Republican Party. They're rhinos through and through.
Well, and you've got an attorney general who's not really the AG. Jeff Sessions pretends to be, but is being run by other people, most notably Rod Rosenstein. And if he had the ability and the courage to do the right thing, he'd pull the plug on Mueller and say, all right, you've had 10 months. I'll give you 2 more months. Your central assignment, it's written in paper, is to find evidence of Trump-Russian collusion. You haven't found it in 10 months. 3 different congressional committees in a year and a half haven't found a scintilla of Trump-Russian collusion. Enough is enough.
And I think we're well there. The likelihood of that happening is 0, so long as Sessions is Attorney General, McConnell is Senate Majority Leader, and Paul Ryan is the Speaker. The Republican Party is simply, it looks like it's imploding.
Well, it's lost except for Donald Trump. And, his move here on tariffs is a courageous
It's a brilliant move, too.
It's a courageous one. And I think he can pull it off, too.
Yeah, I think he has. And I love the idea, these wags, as I call them in the business press, talking about The market is down last week because of the president's tariffs. And then today we're watching a 1% move, 337 points on the Dow. I mean, the national left-wing media, whether business press or whether they be the political press, are just absolutely ludicrous to watch, but at least entertaining on occasion.
They're going crazy today on this guy, Sam Nunberg, who is a peripheral player in the Trump campaign and has had a meltdown on television. And, of course, the elite liberal media's running wild with that one.
Yeah, they must love him. You won't hear, by the way, that guy Nunberg much more on this broadcast. Greg Jarrett, you'll hear a lot from him. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Greg Jarrett. We're coming right back. Much more. Stay with us. GOP lawmakers demanding a second special counsel. We'll talk with one of the 13 congressmen calling for a fair, independent investigation of Clinton and Obama corruption and collusion. As for this daredevil, highlining is almost too easy, but it is nonetheless spectacular. We'll show you how he spiced up an already daring stunt next with a nightly video. We'll be right back. Stay with us. My next guest is among those who've called for a second special counsel to investigate FBI corruption. Joining us tonight is Republican Congressman Francis Rooney of Florida, Vice Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Great to have you with us, Congressman. The prospects for, and as I've talked with a number of folks in Congress, I understand the frustration, and I don't have the best answer, but I really wonder if a special counsel, when we watch what is happening with Robert Mueller, if that is the answer here to find out more about what's going on in the FBI.
Well, the special counsel can do a lot of things that IG can't do. And
Right.
I think if you get the right special counsel, someone's got a real knife in their teeth that wants to go in there and root out this partisan criminality that we seem to be seeing on all fronts of Hillary Clinton and the FBI and the DOJ, we might get something done here.
Yeah, I think that's right. If a name were to spring to mind, I'd even be more comfortable, but it doesn't to my mind. Is there someone who does spring to your mind?
Well, I'm a business guy, so I don't know a whole lot of lawyers. But
You're bragging, aren't you? You're bragging.
There are guys like Ron DeSantis, Robert Bork. There's some pretty well-known prosecutors out there that have accomplished a lot for our country.
You bet. And Ron DeSantis, I think, is an extraordinarily talented person and would make a terrific special counsel. It is, so we're in pretty good shape on that. Now we just have to convince Ron DeSantis, I suppose, who would, I think, prefer to be governor of the state of Florida. Let's talk about what we're seeing here right now, and that's a special counsel that's operating, frankly, without a relevant portfolio. He's supposed to be investigating collusion, and Mueller is simply just going out on witch hunts and fishing expeditions, widening a probe that has produced absolutely no evidence that would support the mission that he was employed to find. That is collusion with Russia.
Exactly. I think it's highly unfortunate that a person of such a distinguished career and reputation would have set up this investigation to be so laden with Democrats, so partisan, and so, as you say, out in the wilderness instead of focused on the mission. All this time and money that's been spent hasn't proved any collusion at all.
It hasn't proved collusion, and we're watching now what looks to be a battle shaping up between Speaker Ryan, Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, and the President on the issue of tariffs, for crying out loud. Ryan has found another way to embarrass himself and the Republican Party opposing this president. What do you make of it, and what do you think will unfold?
Well, I don't know. The thing that I would like to see the terrorists focus on first and foremost is China, because I think they are one of the biggest problems that we face in the world right now. And whether aluminum and steel are the best ones to go after China, or electronics and other kinds of things are, but you know, we have huge trade deficits all over the world, and it's a problem. The president's right to be concerned about it, but we also don't want to unravel supply chains that make America competitive either. But China's a menace.
Yeah, you know, those supply chains are the making of U.S. multinationals, though, not U.S. policy. U.S. policy has followed the dictate of K Street, the Business Roundtable, the Chamber of Commerce. Meanwhile, we haven't run a trade surplus in this country since 1975, Congressman. This president should be saluted by everyone for putting those tariffs on and saying we're done with free trade. That means it's going to cost us and American workers and working men and women and small business people fortunes. This has got to end.
You make a real good point about small business and suppliers to these companies, and I think that's a very important thing. And, you know, there's no such thing as really free trade.
No, there sure hasn't been.
Freer trade. I mean, I think we've got to have a balance in how much trade deficit is reasonable and how much is, as you say, too prejudicial to our internal production capacity.
Well, let me give you a suggestion of what I think on how much is acceptable. 43 years of trade deficits by the world's strongest economy. Consecutive years of trade deficits is just a monument to the power of K Street, the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, and U.S. multinationals. And it is really, really past time that we put the American citizen, who is more than a taxpayer and a consumer and a worker, as you know, first and foremost. And thank God we've got a president with the principle and the guts and the intelligence to do just that. And it's fun to watch everybody squirm as he does the right thing. Congressman, you get the last word.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you for continuing to bring visibility to this horrendous out in the wilderness investigation. I think we ought to find out how much money Mueller spent and how many trees he's cut down and paper he's made to accomplish so little.
Congressman, great to have you with us as always. Thanks. Congressman Francis Rooney. Please roll the video now. Two thrill seekers combining extreme sports high up in Italy's Dolomite Mountains, one walking a tightrope between two peaks. Oh, which one do you think is safer? I'm trying to think. Wingsuit or tightrope? That's what they call a Hobson's choice. Man, spectacular. But crazy? Absolutely. Our nightly video. Up next, the Trump administration fighting back against the establishments, the elites, and special interests who don't even know what the president means when he talks about the forgotten man and woman in this country. I'll have a few thoughts on swamp creatures in my commentary coming up next. Stay with us. Well, President Trump's insistence on imposing tariffs on imported aluminum and steel is rock-solid economic policy, long overdue. The perfect political decision as well, and it's simple to judge just how correct President Trump is on all of this. Just listen to all of the usual swamp creatures, the business establishment, K Street, the Business Roundtable, all of them howling and snarling about the president's insistence that U.S. trading partners no longer exploit our markets, but rather engage in fair, reciprocal, balanced trade. The Business Roundtable and the Chamber of Commerce are particularly upset because, well, they've bought and owned leaders in both parties on Capitol Hill for decades. They can't buy President Trump. That's why the establishment and the deep state are trying to obstruct and subvert Mr. Trump and his administration at every turn. One of the business establishment's most expensive purchases is, of course, Speaker Paul Ryan, who once again is attacking President Trump and these tariffs, helping as best he can in the efforts to frustrate the president and the will of the American people. Ryan is quite simply bought and paid for, so his motivation is clear, unlike his conscience. Ryan makes no sense on nearly every issue, and there is every reason to slap tariffs on steel and aluminum. The steel being dumped in this country is subsidized by governments, in particular China, priced dramatically below cost in each of those countries, and this. Both steel and aluminum are strategic metals. The success of American producers and manufacturers is critical to the national security. Ryan, pure and simple, isn't working in the national interest on this issue. In my opinion, he should resign for that reason alone. Ryan and his lot have the temerity to argue with President Trump. They have become simply obstructionists. Look at the new Trump reality. Morons, some of them in the business press, tried to make a case that the Trump tariffs were misguided, that for 3 days last week the markets were falling because of the tariffs and the likelihood of a trade war. Now those markets today surged more than 1%. The Dow rallied more than 300 points as the president warned he will not back down. The markets have added trillions of dollars in value since he was elected. Consumer confidence at an almost 20-year high. Weekly jobless claims just hit the lowest level since 1969. Manufacturing is expanding at the fastest rate since 2004. And thanks to President Trump's tax reform and tax cuts, Americans' income after taxes saw the biggest gain in more than 5 years. This president has made it clear that he intends to put America first, to put American workers first, standing up to the establishment elites, multinationals, and K Street, who have had their way for several decades now, and at the expense of working men and women, their families, small business, and our middle class. President Trump is fighting for all of them, and he is the first president to recognize that we've been in a trade war with communist China and the socialist European Union for 30 years now. He's the first president to decide it is time that America fight back. Now our quotation of the evening from President Ronald Reagan, who said, "The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave." Up next, the partisan witch hunt that refuses to end. We take up the shocking expansion of the Mueller investigation. Byron York of the Washington Examiner joins us here next. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Joining us tonight, Byron York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner and Fox Business contributor. Byron, great to see you.
Hello.
Tonight on this broadcast, we focused on a frustrating Robert Mueller special counsel that continues to widen, expand, and as he does, the whole effort becomes more vacuous and futile, it seems, in terms of his original mandate. Meanwhile, we're looking at Hillary Clinton, the Obama Justice Department and FBI with obvious corruption. And give us your sense if we will ever, earlier tonight, I was told that we will never investigate Hillary Clinton's conduct. What do you think?
Well, we've seen growing calls from a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill for another special counsel. And Republicans have traditionally not liked these special counsels very much because of exactly what we're seeing with the Mueller case, because of mission creep, the fact that they go all over the place and they never end. But the feeling is that this alleged misconduct by the FBI and the Justice Department and the whole FISA case, the dossier, and all of that is so important, and the fact that the Justice Department cannot investigate itself means there should be a second counsel. So they're trying on that front. Not sure they're going to get there.
And Devin Nunes, who has done, has been essential to our public knowledge of what has happened and transpired in the Obama Justice Department, the Obama FBI. When you say alleged, I can point to a half dozen instances that are on their face, criminal conduct on the part of the FBI and the Department of Justice. Why is there this refusal to dig deeply into why the FBI refused to investigate on its face, having a private server in her home, on its face, pay to play corruption on the part of the Clinton Foundation?
Well, you're raising a question that Republicans have not been able to answer, even though they control the House, they control the Senate, now they control the White House. But they are looking forward to, I know you're not a huge fan of inspector generals, but they're looking forward to this inspector general's report that they're hoping to get in maybe at the end of this month, maybe at the end of next month. And I think the reason they're looking forward to it is that they hope it might be a Kickstarter to get a bigger investigation, an investigation with actual teeth going. But the fact is, there's a Republican attorney general, there's a Republican leader of the House and of the Senate, and a Republican president, and it has not happened.
Yeah, isn't that stunning? And with now an open battle between Ryan and the president on the issue of tariffs, despite the fact that we haven't had a trade surplus in this country since 1975. We've lost trillions of dollars.